Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sushi Tech Tokyo 2026, and welcome to this Impact stage. From now, we will begin the session titled The Future Pioneered by AI Asia.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I am excited to be back. I was here same time last year, and the crowd gets bigger, the energy gets bigger, and the guests get better every year. Anyway, I will introduce them each in turn, but I'm very excited to host this session, Future Pioneered by AI Agents. There's a lot going on, and so, can I get the clicker? All right. Let me start with a video, how I use agents every day. 皆さん、こんにちは。日本マイクロソフトの津坂美希です。コーパイロットは日々進化を続けています。AI エージェントとの連携により、さらに高度で複雑な業務にも対応できるようになりました。社内ではお客様の企業情報や数年分のビジネスデータをコーパイロットが分析し、そのインサイトをもとに担当者と焦点を絞った議論を行っています。入社以来、毎週ビバインゲージで全社員に向けてメッセージを発信しています。アナリティクスエージェントが投稿内容を分析し、改善のヒントを提供してくれます。マイクロソフト Teams の会議では、インタープリターエージェントがリアルタイムで翻訳を行い、言語の壁を越えたディスカッションが可能になりました。
法務チームはコパイロットを使用して契約を分析し、運用ワークフローを簡素化して計画ワークフローを自動化します。
AI の新たな可能性をコーパイロットでぜひ体感してください。So the latest data suggests there will be 1.3 billion Asians by 2028. This is a number quite significant, and for a country like Japan, I think it is one of the solutions to our declining population, an aging population, and I'm very, very excited about the possibilities, which we'll talk about next. In fact, Vice Governor Miyasaka from the Metropolitan Government of Tokyo installed Copilot, and in 1 month, the city of Tokyo has actually created 1,000 agents, and they're just beginning their journey. One of the most important things, however, in terms of using AI is security. You have security, 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 data, and then you finally have the right to use AI and agents. And one of the things we're proud to announce is that next month we will be announcing a product suite called Microsoft Agent 365. An agent that is created in your company is like a new employee. And so we will have an ability to observe, govern, and secure that new agent just like they were an employee of the company. So please stay tuned. We're very proud too that our Copilot suite is now used by 94% of the Nikkei 225 companies, as well as our smart startup ecosystem as well. So we're very excited to, again, provide the platform to use AI safely and securely. And in the world of agents, that becomes an even more important element of how we think about the ecosystem. One more video in terms of agent use. Then I'll hand the stage to the others. 皆さんこんにちは。日本マイクロソフトの津坂美希です。今回は日本マイクロソフト社員が実践しているコーパイロットと AI エージェントの活用事例をご紹介します。マーケティングチームは AI ツアー東京の実施にあたり、メッセージや集客ページの作成を AI で自動化し、作業時間を3分の2に削減しました。イベントには高い関心が寄せられ、お申し込み数は目標を 25% 上回りました。ファイナンスチームは全世界で900近い AI エージェントを作成、先進的な事例とともに社内に共有しています。お客様の財務分析や予測なども自動化し、より戦略的な業務へシフトしています。人事チームは年2回行われる従業員の満足度調査の結果をコーパイロットで集計します。AI を活用して課題を洗い出し、改善策をまとめ、日々のアクションプランにまで落とし込んでいます。
お客様先へ伺う直前になると、エージェントが自ら動いて社内のビジネスプランと社外の公開情報を組み合わせ、お客様や競合他社を分析。最新情報はメールで送られ、よりお客様に寄り添った視点でチームと議論を進められます。皆様もぜひコーパイロットを活用ください。
So I've been in this job now, starting my 4th year. Every year, every month, how AI and agents have become part of our day-to-day lives at Microsoft, and hopefully for many of you, is pretty remarkable. And this will continue. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And I think this technology enables us to do that. We hope we can empower and co-pilot your growth. And with that, let me now hand over the stage to Tomioka-san from Telexistence, and I'll ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves. Yoroshiku.
Okay, thank you, Tsusaka-san. So, all right. So, hi everyone. This is Jane Tomioka, the CEO of Telexistence. So we, as a company, try to accelerate the world transition to the automation economy, and so what we are building right now is what we call the physical AI agents. So they don't just think, but they perceive, plan, and actually act in the real environment. So robotics. And let me show you, what that looks like. So our robot, Ghost. So this robot is actually working the real convenience stores in Japan, and we have already deployed 3 major convenience brands in Japan. So we bring the robot to the stores and then spend 5 hours to build the robot without asking the stores to be closed. And then once the robot is connected to the internet and power supply, the robot starts working autonomously. So in terms of control, so how we control this robot? So 99% is operates through the computer vision and the motion planning. And the remaining 1% is pretty interesting. So we control the remaining 1% through the teleoperation. So meaning, so we have an operation base in Philippines, and the people in Philippines controlling the robot in Japan. And we try to collect the data set to train our AI model. And this is pretty, key things in physical AI. So now our model starts generating the actions, all the appropriate actions for all the patterns of how the item can fall on a shelf. So video A is performing by humans, and video B is performing by our model. So the model it's pretty obvious that the model is precise and faster to pick the drinks and then try to recover it and then put on the shelf. And we apply the same approach to the more complex task using the humanoid. So if we can, realize these 2 solutions in all across Japan, then which means we can supply the robotic workforce around 150,000 workforce to the retail, and which is pretty amazing things because we have been facing the labor shortage for past 20 years, and we're going to face it for next 20 years. And the bottleneck or the key challenge is the data set. We don't have enough data set to train the model, unlike the language model. So from last year, we used 30 or 40 robots and then try to collect the motions for different use case using our Philippine operations. So anyway, the AI agents are no longer just software. They are becoming physical and already work in the real world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. Round of applause. We just saw some pretty amazing things. All right, so from a completely different industry, Nakagawa-san, yoroshiku onegaishimasu.
Sure. So this is Takashi, CEO of Kakehashi. So let me quickly introduce what we do. as you know, Japan is highly aging society, and the overall population is declining. The healthcare is one of the rare markets that are growing. So Kakehashi has been always focusing on healthcare market, and we started with pharmacies because a pharmacy is a very unique channel where the medicine and the patients have to go through in Japan. So we started with pharmacies and providing one product and expanded our product portfolio, now covering all the areas of Japanese pharmacy operations. So we started with Musubi, which is a pharmacy record system where patients in the pharmacies have conversations. We record the conversations in the system. And Poketo Musubi is a patient application. We also have the area of management data. Musubi Insight is a BI tool that pharmacy headquarters uses. And also we have AI inventory management where the pharmacies can order medicines by using AI. So it's automated process. And also we have supply chain area. So we not only provide a system to pharmacies, but also we share the supply and demand data with wholesaler as well as the generic manufacturer so that the whole supply chain operations can be streamlined. So now we have coverage of 17,000 stores in Japan, which is over 25%. And more importantly, we have more than 30 million patient interactions covering using our infrastructure. So using our data and patient touchpoint, we are not only aiming to improve the pharmacy operations, but also we are trying to have an impact on the supply chain of the medicines or the operation of the hospitals. So the whole supply chain of the healthcare system can be evolved. So that's the focus of what we are doing now.
Thank you very much. I think both of you represent such different parts of the physical ecosystem, but I think what you were saying, Tomioka-san, around physical AI, that is the next stage of AI, and you're already there, which is very impressive. But as you said, the data is not there, just like language models. So I think we'll talk a little bit more. And what Kakehashi does in terms of healthcare and pharmacies and doctors and nurses, this is an incredibly complicated value chain across any market in the world. And in fact, where Microsoft started investing in terms of industry expertise is in the world of healthcare, because there's a lot of cost, there's a lot of challenges, and yet the people working in the industry, deserve more information and better data to do what they need to do. So I think what you've done is pretty remarkable, and I think Kakehashi is indeed one of the leading providers of a very unique service. So last but not least, one of my favorite panelists, Kathy Matsui, if you could progress the slide, and she needs no introduction, but perhaps you can introduce yourself again.
Thank you, Miki-san, and welcome everybody to Sushi Tech. I'm so impressed at the crowd this year again. It seems to grow year by year, but it's always a pleasure to speak with Miki and always some very, very forward-thinking entrepreneurs, and particularly today we're going to be talking about AI and agentic AI, I think in particular. We have a venture capital fund called Empower Partners. It was founded in 2021, and we have invested in 22 both Japanese and non-Japanese startups in Fund 1, and we launched Fund 2 last year. Our core theme in Fund 2, or one of the core themes, is actually Japan dynamism. And it's really trying to find companies that can provide solutions to help strengthen Japan's national resilience. That includes everything from energy security, supply chains, robotics, healthcare. We have a very, very wide range, but it goes without saying in this day and age of very high degree of geopolitical uncertainty, it's incumbent upon Japan and the private sector, the government and the private sector, to work together to strengthen national resilience. So really excited to talk about this topic today.
Great. If you can just advance the slide to the next one, Kathy. So I have two questions for the panelists, and we have 28 minutes to go. So here we go. Question number one, if any one of you wants to volunteer, but it's a very broad question. You've both, the two of you, as startup founders, have talked about areas of very focused AI usage in your category. But maybe we can step back and be a little bit broader to think about how agents are being implemented in society. What kinds of transformations are they driving, and what challenges would they need to overcome? Would either of you like to go first? Junkin. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tsusaka, for asking a question. So, in terms of the physical AI robotics, I think so it's just started. To be precise, like 2 years ago, when people finding out the foundation model can apply to robotics, meaning generating the motions, and I think for the next 3 years, I think it starts with the pretty easy, simple, repetitive tasks. So that it won't be able to do like complex, like complex tasks done in the auto manufacturing factories. You start with a pretty simple task. But even to do that, the bottleneck or key challenge here is as I said, the data is not there, unlike the language model. So for example, language model, if you can crawl on the web, you can find a video image, language image. All those things can be used for train the model, but the robotic is different. So somebody have to collect the data to train the model, and right now people are starting doing that. And another thing is, among China, Japan, US, we are not competing again on the technology right now. We are competing on finding the right big applications. So I think the one who find the applications first is going to take over all the robotic and the model.
No, that's a very interesting perspective. As I said earlier, that is the biggest challenge, I think, in terms of physical AI. We're very far from humanoids, and yet a market like Japan has had the best robotics companies in the world, and our factories are probably one of the most automated ones. But those are indeed, as you say, repetitive tasks. And I think it's pretty remarkable what you're doing in the Philippines to kind of train the robots to find the training data, because that's where it has to happen. And I think your geopolitical perspective is interesting. I think there's a lot of development. We're very lucky in Japan to be on the west coast of the US and the east coast of China. We are stuck kind of in the middle. And so there's a lot to learn from both coasts, I would say. How about you, Takashi-san?
Sure. So we see a great example of Copilot and how you adapt the Copilot in
Thank
the
you for the marketing. Yes.
Microsoft operations. But I think I would say it's much easier to adapt the generative AI into, let's say, Kakehashi's organization, because essentially we are IT startup and we are more adaptive to new technology. But I think it's much, much harder to adapt the generative AI into healthcare market, like operations with the pharmacy or operation with the hospitals. So it's not about buying a new product and buying a new tool and then just start using it. It's more of how they change the day-to-day operations, and they need to change the workflow. They need to change the day-to-day operations. So it's much harder than just to use the new tool, but they need to change the day-to-day manuals. And also the challenging point is not about the workflow, but it's more about the mindset of the people who are working there, because they need to be more adaptive to new technology. So that's the hardest challenge we are facing.
We were talking ahead of the session around, what the challenges are of making Japan change, I guess, and you've kind of touched on that. I often talk about the 10-20-70 rule, where 10% is the algorithm, 20% is the IT infra something might sit on. But certainly in Japan, 70% of the AI challenge, I think, is a human challenge. How do you think about which pharmacies, because you now cover 25%, yes, of Japan? How do you think about where to go next, and how do you convince the people on the other side that this is indeed going to be good for their business? Because it is a big change relative to how they operate today.
Right. So I think the key is to make the challenges a little bit easier for the employee.
The entry challenge.
Yeah,
Okay.
entry challenge. So this year we launched a new product called AI Musubi record that we put the microphone and onto the counter of the pharmacy. And we record all the conversations between the patients and the pharmacist. And we automate the records making processes. By using those programs, they can efficiently make the records and they can make the day-to-day life much easier. So that's one of the key strategy we are taking. So it's difficult to just adopt the AI agents. They don't know how to use it. But bringing those products into their day-to-day operations and then make them feel, oh, wow, that's great. That makes my life so much easier. Then that actually changes their mindset. So the key is to how to build the AI agent into their day-to-day product.
So start with some of the perhaps easy stuff, but obvious stuff too, because the before and after is so dramatic. Great. Well, Kathy, over to you. The same question, maybe as an investor. I'm sure people are banging on your door to invest, and AI is probably part of many of the propositions that come your way. But how would you answer this question on the screen?
Sure. I think that it goes without saying that AI is not in any one particular or several particular sectors. It is cutting across every industry, services, manufacturing, you name it. And I think that there has been this, I don't know, maybe a bifurcated or two-pronged approach or reaction. One is we know we have to integrate and embed AI in our business, and we'll kind of scratch the surface, but they're not really integrating it into the infrastructure of the business, right? And I think the majority are probably still in that former category. Obviously, Microsoft, you have better knowledge than anybody, perhaps. And I think that we're at that phase where it's curiosity or it's hype, but then what do we do? And I think more importantly for the managers of these organizations, how do we manage our organization once we bring in AI agents into our, into our enterprise? For instance, you kind of think, what is left for humans to do once agents basically can automate tasks, they can call APIs. So what are humans supposed to do in that context? Well, I think it comes down to humans still need to provide the judgment. They still need to provide or work on the relationships. They still need to provide maybe accountability for how these AI agents are really being integrated and fully utilized to perform the tasks that we want them to do. So I still think a lot of organizations are at that crossroads, are not quite where they need to be. They're learning, but they're not running fast enough. And we're looking at companies globally, and whether it's legal tech, legal AI, we have a company called Fast Label in the data annotation category. We're invested in Sakana AI. But every day, as you know, there's just new news coming out, and it's running so fast that I hope that Japanese companies, especially startups, are going to keep pace with this super rapid pace of change. The good news, though, is that now you're seeing companies form in like 1 week with one person and become a unicorn, overnight. It's just amazing company formation and that speed. So we're so excited, in particular in Tomioka-san's space and in Kakehashi-san's space. What Japan brings is that urgency. This is a forcing function, as Miki said, about the demographic decline. So Japan has no choice but to adopt this ASAP. And I think a lot of the applications that were discussed already are super promising from our perspective.
Thank you. I forgot to ask you, Tomioka-san, after your presentation around the same question, but maybe a different angle. You had said that the war for human or physical AI is going to be determined by what use cases will be, first scalable. How do you think about that? And within your scope, what are the areas that you're excited about in what you're doing today?
Okay, so first of all, to answer your question, it's pretty hard to find the right application. That's the hardest part. So, but one thing...
Is that because there's so many possibilities?
Yes, so many possibilities.
Okay.
So when I started the company back in 2017, the first year I spent is to meet the enterprise customers. Yes. And I think I met a couple hundred customers, but I couldn't decide the one among them. So I
think you were too early.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty intuitive things. But one thing we were thinking is we want to actually deploy the robot to the place where there's no single robot working, because it's huge space, right? So that's how we ended up doing the retail and logistics. And in terms of the robotic business, right? I think that the most important thing is how you can achieve the unit economics. So one measurement we have is whether we can achieve more than 35% of the gross margin by not selling the hardwares but the provide as a service. So that's how we decide the market right now. And one other thing is because we design and manufacture a robot by ourselves, so we need the numbers to bring down the cost. So we cannot really, build a robot and then deploy 10 robots. That's something impossible for us to be sustainable. So the market size is also pretty significant.
I was going to ask you and Takashi-san the same question. You guys have been, doing this for a little while now. You started in, you said 2017. Isn't it really exciting right now to be what you're doing, to be who you are, what you have? Like, do you feel like it's now time?
After waiting 8 years, yes, right. It's the right time.
Okay,
and
okay.
This is the time.
Telexistence 2026. How about you, Takashi-san?
Right. So it's
You've been doing this for how long now?
about 10 years.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm definitely excited. So now, I think there are two aspects of generative AI. One is how we can adapt the generative AI into a product, and second aspect is how we can adapt them into our internal operations. So the second aspect's impact is really huge. So now we are changing our product development processes into completely different processes now. So the definition of the role of the product development manager is totally different. Probably the definition of the role of the designer will be totally different. Now, our best practice used to be size of the pizza. The Scrum team should be size of a pizza, so 6 to 8 people. So that has been the best practice in the past 10 years. Yeah. But now, the size of the team should be 1 or 2 people and using the AI at the same time. So it's totally different. So now we can do with the same amount of people. It's totally different.
Right. I was just thinking 6 to 8. That's an American-sized pizza. I want to
Right.
do Japanese
Japanese
pizza.
pizza is
Sorry.
smaller.
So, Kathy, you're a startup founder too. You've been now 5 years, right, in the role after starting Empower to its great success. How do you think about the last 5 years, and what is special about this year versus maybe 5 years ago?
Yeah, I was just going to add that as an investor, obviously the rise of AI, and especially agentic AI, has huge implications for many startups, particularly here in Japan, that were basically based on SaaS software type models, right? Where you basically charge per seat or per user. But with the rise of agentic AI, of course, now we as investors have to ask that question, which is, what if agentic AI is next week 10 times more powerful than today? Is your business going to benefit? Is it going to be better? Or is it going to be hurt, right? Is it going to become a victim? And that was a question we did not ask 5 years ago when we started. So this is a really new age and a really new environment that's really questioning what is your competitive moat? What is your, Kyoso Yuisei ultimately about? And I also think that with this agentic AI, if it's not about SaaS and charging, per seat or per user, then, for example, sales cycles are probably longer, right? Customer success is more important and probably costs more for startups. So it's not an easy environment, frankly. But I think for those startups that can really embrace this agentic AI and fully embed it into their enterprises, I think this is an amazing opportunity for not winner takes all, but I think they're going to be very, very dominant. But it's about speed. And I think that's what's most critical.
Great. Thank you. Maybe we can, if you can click to the next question. Why don't we shift gears to now doing what is very difficult, which is predicting what's next, whether it's at a Japan level, societal level, people level, would love to hear each of your thoughts around, what are the challenges that will confront inevitably. And Kathy, I think you've already teed one up, which is the technology is moving so fast that some of these things, there's a new, it model every week. There's billions of dollars around the world, and yet, Japan, I think, as an ecosystem, is, in a very good spot because the technology should work in our favor given the demographic winds that come the other way. So, any one of you would like to attempt to begin to answer this question? Do you want to try it? Thank you.
All right. So in next 3 years.
3 years, yeah.
3 years.
Because I could have said 5, I could have said it 10, and you're like, no, like I don't think we can go
right.
that far. But
3
3 is
years.
a long time in the AI world, so.
Yeah, so I think 3 years, I think it could be changed, it can change things a lot. And from our perspectives, so as I mentioned before, we actually want to deploy our robots for retail, the convenience stores, up to 52,000. So that's the thing we're trying to aim, we are aiming to do. And if we can do that, then this is also I mentioned, we can supply 150,000 workers, which is a pretty critical thing for Japan. And the key challenge is same thing, the data set. We need a data set. So to solve this issue, right, so I think this year we're going to work with the Japanese government to send our humanoid to our Philippine base and then use the 100 humanoid to collect more data set. And that is very exciting things to do. And this is not only used for us, but we also provide that data set for the third party for them to train the model. So yeah, so this year I think we're going to try to scale the data collection operations and try to make our model more precise and effective to deploy our robot in next 3 years.
No, your KPIs and passion is very, very clear, so that's good to know.
Thank
3
you.
years from now, Takashi-san.
Right, so it's difficult to answer the question because it's changing so rapidly now. Our engineers used to be very excited about Devin like 6 months ago, 1 year ago, but now they're using totally different AI agents, and now we need to adapt to day-to-day updates of the new AI agent. But I would probably, there are two different ways to answer this question from the perspective of healthcare, also as well as a startup perspective. So if I would answer the question from healthcare perspective, I would say Japanese healthcare ecosystem has a lot of room to be improved. So still they're using fax and telephone, and lots of processes are still paper-based. So many processes can be automated. And some of those processes cannot be fully automated with SARS because those operations are different from hospital to hospital. So now they can adapt the AI agent, which can be customized to each hospital operations or pharmacy operations. So by using or by leveraging the power of the generative AI, probably the hospital operations or healthcare operations can be totally different. And now we need to optimize the budget of the healthcare in Japan. Also, the number of the doctors and nurses will be in shortage. So now it's time for us to adopt more new technologies and we can optimize the process of the healthcare ecosystem. So now, in 3 years, we need to be really different. So that's what I think.
Okay, no more fax machines in 3 years is a predicted. No, just kidding.
Right.
No, this technology has indeed moved faster than any technology revolution that we've experienced. Whether you look at the internet or social media, it takes years to get to 1 million people, and this one just happened overnight. Kathy, your view, 3 years from now?
Yeah, I think that I will take a sort of different angle. The challenges are formidable, frankly. But I think if I were to tackle this question from the government or policymakers' perspective, Miki, you mentioned earlier about the data governance and data security, data privacy issues are absolutely number one priority, I think, for the government. And so how do you secure the quality of the data, ensure that there's no or minimal hallucinations and mistakes? That's going to be, I think, a huge challenge from a public sector perspective, number one. Number two, at that private sector company level, as I mentioned earlier, I think this really is going to cause a revolution of how companies are organized, right? I think there's a lot of, let's just call it middle management, who basically assign tasks to junior people, and with agentic AI, a lot of those tasks or those assignments are going to go away. So I think thinking again, maybe from a blank sheet of paper, how would you create your company if you knew what agentic AI could do today? Would it look the same as your current company, or would it look different? And I think those questions are going to be posed at that private sector level. And then finally, at the civil society level, I mean, you and I have kids the same age, but maybe it's good that they're older, but maybe not, I don't know. Like, what do we teach our children in schools, right, with this new age that we're entering? I'm kind of scratching my head and thinking, teach them judgment, teach them, I don't know, I guess liberal arts may come back into fashion, I'm glad, but this is a huge challenge for civil society as parents, as educators, and I think that's going to be a big topic of discussion as we move forward.
No, maybe that's a good place to get your collective views. Earlier, someone had mentioned, what is the role of humans in the agentic world? At least 3 years from now, I think humans will still be around. I personally often talk about how it's not AI that is taking away jobs. It's people that know how to use AI taking probably the roles of those that are not keeping up. So there's that element. I also think there is a EQ and IQ part. AI, IQ, way over the top, right? But companies, organizations, societies, will always have room, I think, for the EQ side. And I do think liberal arts will be back. I've talked to many educators here about teaching our young next generation curiosity, and the good students don't just ask ChatGPT one question. They go back and forth, back and forth. So I think there's room. But would love to get your collective views on what is the role of, I guess, the human in an agentic world.
Thank you. So I think this is a pretty interesting question. So let me share my example, right? So on my laptop today, I always run at least 5 agents, including ChatGPT, of course, Copilot.
Thank you. So there's like 5 Tomioka-sans working while you're on stage right now.
And for today's slides
Yes.
I use for the presentation, I just finished within 5 minutes once I give it the script. So it's asking me the surplus I made using the 5 agent, what should I allocate to? And of course, as a CEO, I need to make a right judgment at the right time. So that's the most time I allocated right now. But I still have a time, and I don't know, to be honest. So I have to find a way to use my surplus to make more values on top of making the right judgment. So that's my situation as a CEO at my company. And another question I think that Kathy-san asked is what the role as a humans in society, right? That's the question I want to see after I deploy the robot to automate all the repetitive tasks, physical tasks, and let's see what humans is going to do. I don't know.
We have some internal Microsoft data about how our developers, when they use GitHub Copilot to program, I think the first round, they coded 50% faster, and they're happier. In terms of job satisfaction of getting the transactional stuff being done by AI and leaving the interesting stuff for humans, I think is another bifurcation of how you think about, where AI versus humans are applied. But Takashi-san, do you have a point of view on humans in the world of the agentic world?
Right. So back, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we were working without emails, without PowerPoint. We used to send letters.
We had fax machines.
Yeah, fax machines. And without PowerPoint, we used to write with letters. Now we are using emails and Slacks and PowerPoints and Excel files. Now the efficiency of the work is totally different. So I think the magnitude of agentic AI is bringing is probably the magnitude that we have compared to the fax era. So I think we really need to change how we work. And I think the EQ area of human is I think one of the key points. I think the sales guys will be probably there because the people decide what to buy based on emotions, not by logic. But in the area of engineering, probably that the role of engineers will be totally different. So I think depends on the area of the work, how they work will be totally different in 3 years, and probably in 10 years, probably how we live our life will be totally different. So that will be a quite exciting future.
Kathy, you get the last word.
I think that there's so much potential positives and excitement around AI, but we also have to remember that humans created AI, I think still, and so what I said earlier about the ability for humans to exercise good judgment, because at the end of the day, as I'm using AI daily, it's coming up with answers, and I begin to trust those answers like almost 150%, which can be correct, but sometimes if it's a consequential error, if it's a mistake in something very critical that's legal related or finance related, it could become disaster, right? So really having the ability as humans, maybe this goes back to the education point earlier, to be able to critically think and judge situations, I think is going to be ever more important. And one last thing is, of course, this, at least from American perspective, Japan doesn't have to worry about this, but other countries in terms of job losses, how do you reskill those people whose tasks, whose jobs are being made redundant with agentic AI? I know, there's different views on this, but I think there's plenty of scope for shifting those skills and retraining these talent into another area that hopefully will be even more productive for society. But of course, that takes time.
Indeed. And with that, I think our time is up. I wanted to thank each of the panelists. Perhaps you can give them a great round of applause to end this session. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you so much. Another round of applause to all of our speakers, please. Thank you for an inspiring session. Thank you very much. And please kindly make your way off stage. Thank you.